It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Reaction Beanie Yo 205.4. Day in the neighborhood. My brothers and sisters. Once again, y'all. Once again, baby. It is Sunday. And y'all know last Sunday, man, I tried to put up the video, but it ain't worked. We ain't get to watch the man, the myth, the legend together. And hopefully this time, my damn shit don't stop recording. Because y'all know who we finna go to. MrBallen. MrBallen, y'all. MrBallen Sundays. The title of the video. Inside his tent of horrors. Mature audiences only. So hide the kids, man. Hide the kids. Put the kids away for a little while we watch MrBallen. Now, MrBallen saying inside his tent of horrors, ain't no telling what the hell MrBallen mean by horrors. Y'all know how he can mean anything. It can be anything from him having bodies in there to him. I don't know, man. MrBallen can be anything. He can have fucking damn chopped up animals in that bitch. I don't fucking know, man. But we finna see. But before we see, my brothers and sisters, y'all know what y'all got to do. Get whatever you might need. Get what you need, MrBallen Sundays. Once again, my ladies and gentlemen, and my boys and girls from all around that world. Y'all got what y'all need. Y'all ready to go? Then let's fucking go.
In April of 2023, police in a little town in western India got a call about something horrible being discovered inside of this tent on a farmer's property. So the police went to this property, they found this patchwork tent, which was propped up against the stone wall on the back of the property, and the police, they opened it up, they looked inside, and at first they didn't really understand what they were looking at. It just looked like a sort of weird religious shrine of some kind. But upon closer examination, they realized what they were looking at was actually something very dark. This is one of those stories that goes in a totally random direction at the end, and I must warn you, it's quite graphic, so viewer discretion is advised. But before we get into that story, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right place because that's all we do, and we upload once a week. So, if that's of interest to you, the next time the like button is not looking, secretly replace their medical marijuana stash with an ornery 200-pound Komodo dragon. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. Okay, let's get into today's story. On the evening of April 15th, 2023, a mother and father named Hansa and Himu Makwana stood on the front doorstep of a little shack in a little village in western India called Vinchia. With these two parents were their two kids, a son and a daughter, who were 12 and 13 years old respectively, and they were really excited because tonight they were going to be spending the night with their uncle and their cousins who lived in this shack right in front of them. And so moments later, the door to this shack opened up and immediately the two kids ran inside calling out for their cousins, and the uncle who had opened the door, he just smiled and said hello to Himu and Hansa, and the parents, they're calling after their kids to, please behave, listen to your uncle, be good, but they were already gone. And so finally the uncle said, don't worry, they're fine, we'll have a great night, we'll see you tomorrow. And so Himu and Hansa thanked him very much, and then they turned around, they grabbed each other's hands and began walking out towards the dirt road that would take them back to their own home. The village that Himu and Hansa and their kids and their uncle and their cousins all lived in was a very poor, rundown farming community where for the most part people worked really hard but barely got by. But this night, as Himu and Hansa walked along this dirt road, passing by the shacks and tiny apartments and fields and livestock that were kind of all over the place, They weren't thinking about, the struggles of daily life in this village. Instead, they were thinking about how beautiful the village was that night. The sun was starting to set, and so the sky was this beautiful orange, and all the cows that had been out that day kind of wandering around the village were all starting to stand up and make their way back towards their stables for dinner, and with every step the cows made, the little bells on their neck would ring out. And so the scene in front of Himu and Hansa was so beautiful and peaceful that for a moment they just stopped on the road and kind of took in the sights and sounds. And then at some point, a group of cows who were making their way to their stable came up onto the road right where Himu and Hansa were, and very quickly the couple stepped back to make sure no mud or dirt got kicked up on their clothes. Now, Himu and Hansa were farmers by trade, and so on most days they would wear clothes that were covered in mud and dirt. But this night was different. Himu and Hansa were wearing their finest outfits, and they were not about to get them dirty. Hansa had on her beautiful red dress, and Himu was wearing a starched white button-up shirt. After the cows had crossed the road and suddenly the path was clear again for Himu and Hansa to walk on, Himu paused before taking a step, and he turned and just looked at Hansa. And Hansa, who lately had been feeling quite down, appeared to be very happy and radiant. And so Himu just smiled at Hansa, and at some point Hansa looked up and smiled at him, and then before long they were holding hands again, strolling down the road. A little while later, the couple turned onto their street, and just up ahead on the left side, just off the road, they could see their home, which was a small concrete and brick structure. But when the couple actually reached their property, instead of going in the front door, they walked around their property into the back side where all their crops were. They were growing peanuts and cotton. And Himu and Hansa just walked straight back away from their house through these fields all the way to the very back of their property, which was marked by this huge stone wall that was as tall as Hansa was. And when
I think I know where we going now. You know how MrBallen have just tell you so much and you be like, where we going with it? I think I know where we going now, y'all. And y'all should know too. Wherever they walk into in back of their yard and shit, that's where the damn shrine is at. So both of them end on this shrine shit, whatever this shrine is, and that's why they drop their little kids off at the uncle house. You know what I'm saying? So, because more than likely, I'm guessing the little kids don't know nothing about this secret area behind their backyard or whatever. Now let's see what the hell is, because they all dressed up and shit. You know what I'm saying? Like they finna go, goddamn, like this is something very important that they do. Let's see what the hell do they do at this shrine.
When they reached this wall, they also reached their tent. It was like this patchwork tent they had built, with one side being supported by the stone wall, and the other side, the side closest to them as they approached it, was supported by these pikes they had driven into the ground. Inside of this tent was the family's shrine to the Hindu god Shiva. And over the last couple of days, Himu and Hansa had been working on this new addition to the family shrine. It had been a lot of work, but it was finally done, and tonight, Himu and Hansa were finally going to be able to use it. The couple stood outside the tent, taking in the sights and sounds of the beautiful sunset, and then, one after the other, they went inside the tent. The next day, sometime in the afternoon, Himu and Hansa's children returned from their uncle's house after sleeping over there the night before. And when they got to their home, they went in the front door and immediately called out for their parents. But their parents were not inside the house. And so these siblings walked all around the house and then went out the back door thinking maybe their parents were out in the fields working. But when they went outside, they saw their parents were not out there either. And so as the kids stood there kind of wondering where their parents were, the boy said to his older sister, maybe they're in the shrine. So the kids left the back of their house, they cut straight across the field all the way to that back stone wall where they found the shrine, the tent that was propped up against the wall. And right away, the kids noticed something was off about the shrine. Whenever they're
Okay, the damn kids do know about the shrine. But do they know what the hell was going on in the shrine?
parents were in there praying, they could typically hear them from a distance as they walked up to the shrine. But now, standing right outside of it, it was totally silent. The kids finally lifted up the flap of the tent, and they looked inside, and once again, they did not see their parents. Instead, what they saw inside of the shrine was totally confusing.
Mr. Ballen with his commercials, y'all. Y'all fuck with Mr. Ballen Foundation, man. I'm trying to figure out. Okay, so the kids knew about the shrine, right? They knew about the shrine, but they didn't know. They just thought their parents was in there just praying. You know what I'm saying? Or I don't think they knew exactly what was going on. I don't even know what the fuck going on. Like I can't figure how the parents are missing. They not even in the fucking shrine. Where they at? Did they sacrifice themselves to Queen Sheba or whatever her name is? Oh no, man. This is a crazy one, y'all. This one here crazy. Let's go.
The shrine, which their parents typically kept absolutely immaculately clean at all times, looked kind of dirty. There was this weird rusty colored liquid kind of all over everything, including on some of the holy objects, like the picture and statue of Shiva. And in the middle of the shrine, where there was this fire pit, were these two hunks of meat that looked like they had been placed in the fire and then forgotten about. The kids knew their parents would never leave the shrine in this condition, nor would they spoil food and let it sit out on a fire and not eat it. And so they're thinking to themselves, what happened inside of the shrine, and where are my parents? And then, when they did one more look around the inside of the shrine, they noticed something that they had not when they first opened up the tent. And when they realized what it was, they screamed and took off running. This is the story behind what those children saw. The night before, when their parents, Himu and Hansa, stepped inside the tent, they looked around and surveyed the shrine. Right in the middle of the shrine on the ground was that fire pit, and then off to the right side of the fire pit was a small egg-shaped statue that was a statue of Shiva, and then next to the statue was a picture of Shiva. Shiva is a powerful figure in the Hindu religion. He is viewed as a god of both rebirth and of destruction, and when he is portrayed, like in the photo and in the statue that was inside of the shrine, his skin is smeared white with the ashes of corpses. He has crescent moons in his hair, and around his neck are snakes and skulls. And so Shiva is kind of viewed as both a loving, kind god and also one to be scared of. And so after the couple looked around at their shrine for a second, they got to work. Even though that night it was very hot and muggy outside, the first thing the couple did was get some firewood off to the side inside of this tent, put it in the fire pit, and start a fire. And then after the fire was built, Hansa began sprinkling orange flower petals all around the statue and picture of Shiva. And at the same time, Himu got out a piece of paper and began writing a note. And as he wrote, his hands shook with nervous anticipation of what they were going to do that night. And then after Himu finished writing this letter, he and Hansa dipped their thumbs in ink and pressed them to the bottom of this note, kind of like signing the note. And
yeah, they commit suicide, man. Fuck damn. I call it Queen Sheba, but apparently it's a man, King Sheba. But they commit suicide. That what it gotta be.
And after the note was complete, they folded it up and tucked it between the statue and the picture of Shiva. Then Himu and Hansa turned their attention to their newest addition to the shrine. The new addition basically just looked like a big door frame, but without a door in the middle of it. It was made out of scrap metal that Himu and Hansa had gathered around their village, and if you were standing in front of this structure, it would almost look like you were looking at a doorway into the fire pit. And also draped over the top of this rectangular frame was a white rope. And so Himu and Hansa moved over right in front of the structure as if they were going to walk through the frame into the fire. But instead of doing that, they knelt down right at the base of the structure, right in the dirt, and then they both, in unison, began to say a prayer out loud. And then after the prayer was done, Himu reached up and grabbed one end of this white rope, and he began pulling it until it was tight. And then he pulled it a little bit more and a little bit more until he had it right where he wanted it, and then he held the rope steady. And then Himu, still holding onto this rope, along with Hansa, very carefully got down onto their bellies, Himu being very cautious not to give any slack to the rope or pull it any farther. And then once they were in position on their bellies, all they would have heard was the crackling of the fire in front of them, and all they would have felt was their hearts beating in their chest. Now, very likely, Himu and Hansa were terrified at this point, but this was their moment. They had come too far, and they knew they had to finish this ritual. And so, with one last loving look at each other, the couple nodded, and then turned their attention back to the fire, and then Himu let go of the rope. The rusty-colored liquid that Himu and Hansa's children would discover inside of this shrine the next day was Himu and Hansa's blood. And the 2 hunks of meat that their children saw in the fire were their parents' decapitated heads. The children realized this was the case when they scanned around the tent one more time and noticed their parents' headless bodies lying side by side at the base of the structure. That was what, of course, caused the children to run outside and go find the police. This new addition to the shrine, the metallic structure, was a homemade guillotine. A guillotine is a device that kills people by cutting off their heads. The white rope that Himu had pulled on was connected on one side to a very heavy metal blade. And so when he was pulling the rope, he was pulling that blade up off the ground until it was positioned right above them. And then he held it steady. And then when he let go, the blade fell straight down, striking the backs of their necks, decapitating them instantly and sending their heads rolling forward into the fire, as designed. When the police arrived at the shrine, they would find that letter that Himu and Hansa had written and then signed with their thumb, tucked near the statue and the picture. And in this note, Himu and Hansa would not give a reason for why they did this, but they would say, "This was our choice, we wanted to do this, we just ask that our living family members take care of our children and our elderly parents." No one has been able to give a reason for why Himu and Hansa intentionally decapitated themselves and then let their heads burn in a fire. Their family has said there was no indication that the couple was going to commit suicide. I mean, they seemed happy, they were not financially well off, but they were not financially struggling either. It seemed like their life was good. And so basically, this whole thing came out of left field. As for the police, they believe that Himu and Hansa must have been performing some sort of black magic ritual where they believed if they lopped their heads off and allowed them to roll forward and burn in this fire, that somehow would bring them closer to perhaps Shiva or some other god or some other higher power. But as of today, no one knows. So that's going to do it. If you enjoyed today's story, remember we have hundreds more stories just like this one on our podcast, the MrBallen podcast. And many of those stories on the podcast are exclusive, meaning you can only get them on the podcast. The podcast is available exclusively on Amazon Music.
Bruh, sis, that is one of the most craziest MrBallen stories I have ever heard, y'all. That's one of the most crazy, man. And we done watched 100 MrBallen stories. But this one, seriously, man, this got to be top 5. If I had to make a top 5 of MrBallen stories, this is definitely in the top 5. Might be top 3. This shit was crazy than a motherfucker, man. Are you fucking kidding me? First, let me calm down. First of all, y'all, why would they fucking leave their kids like that? Then I heard they had elderly parents that needed to be taken care of. They wasn't broke or nothing. And this was something that they wanted to do. Like, they wanted to do it. Like, rituals, man. Now that's more probably got to be one of the most crazy rituals I ever heard in my fucking life, man. Not only did they kill themselves, but it's the way that they did it. They did it where they had a fake or a homemade guillotine over their necks while they hanging over that bit. And then when that bit fell, they knew that their heads was gonna roll in the fire. So their heads rolling in the fire was part of the ritual too. Like, listen to how sick and sadistic this, like, oh my God, why the fuck did they do that, bro? Like, I understand, especially like over in other countries like that they believe in gods like fucking and statues and shit, whatever. I understand that part, man, but goddamn, they you taking it that damn far? That was crazy, y'all. We kind of figured that they were gonna, commit suicide at one point. And I was joking about when I was like, well, I wasn't really joking, but I didn't think it was gonna be this bad. When I was like, they got on their best clothes, what they finna go do? What they finna go do in there? I'm thinking they probably killed somebody else or had somebody else dead in that big. No, come to find out they killing they fucking self in just the manner that they did it. One more thing I gotta say, man. I bust out before MrBallen even said. I was like, oh, I couldn't even hold it in, man, because it clicked. I realized what them kids said they was saying. Them two pieces of meat was they damn mom and dad head. It clicked on it, man. MrBallen, y'all, the man, the myth, the legend is, man. Oh my God, bro. This dude, he hands down is the best fucking storyteller, true crime, horror, dark, deep, and mysterious. What is going on? Storyteller on YouTube, man. I don't care what nobody say, bro. It just started raining, man. I know y'all probably hear in the background, man. But I'm gonna let y'all get up out of here anyway, my brothers and sisters. This shit here was crazy. I agree, man. Y'all make sure y'all hit that like button before you leave. Now, if you ain't did it yet, hey, if you ain't subscribed yet, do that shit too. If you want to comment about this crazy shit, do that shit too. And I'll see y'all again real soon, my friends. But before I see y'all real soon, my friends, love, peace, and happiness. Stay safe. Don't stop. Keep going. Yeah.